I've worked with over 300 yoga teachers at this point, and there is one thing that I see holding almost every single one of them back. And it has nothing to do with their content or their strategy or any of the practical stuff most people in this space will tell you to fix first. What I've come to understand, having watched this play out across hundreds of businesses as well as my own, is that when you're building a business, you're not just managing a business. You are managing yourself. Your fears, beliefs, and relationship with what you think you deserve all come into it. And until you get underneath, everything else you try to fix is just treating a symptom to the problem while the thing you actually need to address is still there, running in the background, shaping every decision you make. Now, I know this because I've been there, and the reason I can spot it so clearly in other people now is because it took me years to see this in myself. So let me tell you what that actually looked like. Before my main YouTube channel took off and became what it is today, I'd been working on it for 4 years with almost nothing to show for it. I was doing everything I thought I should be doing, studying what was working, trying to understand why, but for years I was stuck getting about 70 to 100 views per video, making barely £60 a month. And the hardest part wasn't that my views remained low. It was the uncertainty around what that meant. I didn't know if it was something that would eventually click one day, or if I was just gonna be one of those people where it just never worked for me. And that not knowing made me question everything. Because at the time, I felt like I was doing everything right. I was being consistent, I was trying to improve on every video, I kept showing up. But there was something I hadn't dealt with that was working against me. And once I understood what it was, everything I thought I knew about why I was struggling shifted. Here's something I had to learn the hard way. When the financial results aren't there yet, looking at the money isn't enough to keep you going. So I stopped making it the only thing I was measuring as a measurement of growth. Instead, I started paying attention to different things. A comment that told me that something that I created had genuinely helped someone. A subscribe account that was small but was growing. The feeling of getting noticeably better at something even when no one else was watching it yet. Those were small things, but I trained myself to treat them as real evidence that something was growing, that I was progressing. Now that is a mindset practice. It's not a strategy, it's deciding what counts as proof and being disciplined enough to look for it in the right places when everything is telling you it isn't working. And the ability to locate growth in places other than your bank account and use that to keep going is what persistence actually is. Because what kept me going in those early years, and I've thought about this a lot, wasn't a better strategy. It was that I got deliberate about where I was looking for evidence that it was working. Because if I looked at the financials, there was little evidence that it was going anywhere. And if I'd only paid attention to that, I would have quit in year 1. But the small wins, they were real. And what I realize now is that training yourself to see them isn't just a way to feel better about slow progress. It's actually rewiring how you measure what counts. Because the teachers that I've worked with who struggle most aren't struggling because they're not working hard enough. They're struggling because they've set up this measurement system that can only ever show them failure until the day they make it. And that's not a content problem, it's a mindset one. You have to decide consciously that a comment counts, that a slightly better video counts, that showing up for the 45th time when you don't feel like it counts. Not because it pays your bills, because it won't yet, but because you're building the part of you that will still be here when it does, your persistence. Now, this brings me to something that nobody talks about when they describe what building a business actually looks like. And it's the thing that trips people up more than almost anything else I've seen. Now, most yoga teachers I work with are waiting for their business to feel the way they imagine it. So they want to feel inspired, they want it to feel creative and meaningful most of the time. But the honest truth is that most of what building a business actually involves is not exciting. It's repetitive, it's not glamorous. It's replying to the same inquiry for the 50th time. It's showing up to post on a day when you have nothing interesting to say. It's doing the admin, the scheduling, the small boring things that move nothing dramatically, but everything cumulatively. Now, here's the thing that is the business. It's not exciting. It's not like a viral video. It's not, a moment where everything clicks. It's the boring, repeatable work, and that's what actually moves the needle most of the time. And your ability to do that consistently without waiting to feel motivated or to feel excited about it is the skill. Because if you believe the business should feel exciting to be worth doing, every ordinary Tuesday is going to feel like, you're doing something wrong. Because that belief will cost you more than any bad strategy ever could. The boring work is the work. I think one of the most damaging things the online business world does is sell this highlight reel vision of what business looks like. The launch that went to 6 figures, the morning routine of the person who has already made it, the content that went viral. And yoga teachers absorb all of that and then wonder why their actual experience, which involves a lot of boring daily to-dos, where nothing feels exciting, is somehow wrong. It isn't wrong because you're doing it badly. It feels wrong because you were given this unrealistic picture of what business is actually like. Now, the people I've watched build something real aren't the ones who found a way to make everything feel meaningful and exciting. They are the ones who stopped needing it to be exciting. They made peace with the fact that doing the boring, ordinary things and showing up on days when they didn't feel like it was the business. And they removed how they felt and were able to just keep going. Now, all of this, the small wins, the relationship with the ordinary boring work, sits inside something much bigger. And this is a belief system that most yoga teachers have absorbed completely without even realizing it. And this is the most important conversation we need to have. But before I go further, I want to mention something, because if this is landing with you in the way that I hope it does, I think you'll want to know about it. I have a newsletter where I go much deeper into all of this, the business side of teaching that nobody covered in your yoga teacher training, written from someone who thinks you're allowed to take this seriously. No, I'm not your typical yoga teacher. I don't write like one. The link is in the description if you want to come and find out what I mean by that. Okay, back to it. I'm going to say something that doesn't get said enough in the yoga world. You cannot show up fully for your students if you can't pay rent. That's just the truth. Financial stress takes up cognitive and emotional space that could be going towards your teaching your students your own practice. And pretending otherwise isn't spiritual, it's just avoidance. I drive a Mustang. I'm not vegan. I want to make a great living doing the thing I love, and I don't think that makes me any less of a yoga teacher. I think it just makes me an honest one. And the idea that spirituality and ambition are on opposite sides of the room, that wanting to earn well means that you care less, that that a real yoga teacher should live like a monk and be detached from money and all of those things, it's just not realistic, You'll just end up unpaid and resentful, while other people are telling you, that makes you humble. Wanting to make a great living by doing something that brings you and other people genuine joy is not a character flaw. It is completely okay to want that. And if nobody has told you that clearly enough yet, I'm telling you now. Because underneath the small wins, underneath the relationship with doing the boring work, underneath all the patterns I see in the teachers I work with, there is one belief that generates most of it. And it's a belief about identity, about what kind of person a yoga teacher is supposed to be, and whether someone like that is allowed to want what they actually want. Now, most yoga teachers were never told that they were allowed to be ambitious, not in those words at least, but it's in the culture. It's the way teacher training talks about money or doesn't. It's in the quiet social pressure to be seen as someone who does this for the love of it, not for the income. And what that produces isn't humility. It's chronic undercharging and chronic overgiving. Now, undercharging is not a pricing problem. It's a mindset problem. It's what happens when someone doesn't fully believe they deserve to be paid well for what they do. So they set a price that preemptively accounts for the rejection they're expecting. And then they wonder why the business isn't working. And the same is true for the I'm not a business person identity that so many teachers hide behind. I hear it all the time. I'm a teacher, not an entrepreneur. As if those two things are mutually exclusive, as if deciding to understand how a business works would somehow contaminate the teaching. It won't. Like, what it will do is give you the stability to keep teaching, to show up, to keep doing the thing you actually care about for a long time without burning out or giving up. Now, that's the one thing. Every teacher I've worked with who eventually broke through had to reckon with it at some point. So instead of just naming the things that I see, I actually want to give you something concrete, because although naming things matters, I think having a practice you can return to is a lot more useful. So this is something that I call the belief audit. It's 3 questions you can run through whenever the business feels stuck or hard or like you're pushing uphill for no reason. So each one targets a different layer of the same underlying thing. The first question is this: what am I using as evidence right now? So when you're in a slow period, when the numbers aren't moving, what are you looking at to decide whether this is working? If the answer is revenue, that's the problem. Like, find one other thing that's real and measurable, a skill improving, a relationship deepening, a piece of content that landed differently, and use that as your measurement for success. Second question is this: am I waiting for this to feel exciting before I start? If the answer is yes, you've tied your output to your mood, and your mood is an unreliable motivator. Because the question isn't whether you feel like showing up. The question should be whether you've decided to show up regardless of how you feel. Now, the third question is this: what am I not letting myself want? Because most of the time when a business isn't growing the way it should, somewhere in there is a thing the person hasn't fully allowed themselves to want yet. You know, whether it's an amount of money, a team, a version of the business that feels too ambitious or too indulgent or too unlike what a yoga teacher is supposed to want. Name it, write it down, and then ask yourself what it would cost you to actually go for it. Because I bet the answer is less than you think. Now, those are 3 questions. Run them through whenever you need to. And I'll just say one more thing, because I think it matters for how you take in all of this. This work isn't a one-time thing. You know, you don't do it once and never need to do it again. I've been in business for years and I still have to come back to this every few months. Not because something's gone wrong, but because drift happens, you know? You get busy and you start questioning things, and then the old patterns creep in. And the measuring, you know, in the wrong places occurs, the waiting for the exciting moments comes back in, the old beliefs creep in through the side door, and you're like, how did I get here again? But when I ask these questions, it gives me a moment to zoom out, you know, and I start looking at the same situation with fresh eyes. And I start understanding where I've gone wrong and where I need to get back on track. This is important because the people who build something that lasts aren't the ones who fix the belief once and then move on. They're the ones who keep coming back, keep checking in, and keep doing this kind of work to reevaluate and recalibrate. Now, if this has resonated, if you're a yoga teacher who's serious about building something real and you've spent any time wondering whether wanting that makes you somehow less of a yoga teacher, the newsletter is where I would like to point you next. It's the business thinking your training didn't teach you, from someone who genuinely believes you can be ambitious and grounded at the same time, and that one of those things doesn't have to cost you the other. The link is in the description. I hope to see you there.